What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Patel and Kumar Show, Episode 2. I am Shivam Patel, coming to you live from San Antonio, Texas. And I'm my co-host, Mr. Kumar, coming to you live from Mumbai, India. Mr. Kumar, what's up? Good evening.
What's up, Mr. Patel? A very good morning to you. And let me tell you, it feels like I'm marooned in an island because it's been raining nonstop for the last 2 days in Mumbai. But I'm excited to be here today for the Patel and Kumar NBA talk show. And this is our second episode. What an exciting first episode it was, let me tell you. And we had great response from our viewers. So thank you very much for your support. And we're looking forward to do this every Thursday, the Patel and Kumar NBA talk show. So, Mr. Patel, what do we have in store for us today?
Yes, and I hope everyone's enjoying watching the game so far. And we have an exciting episode for you today. First of all, we're going to talk about a weekly recap of the NBA games. And in there, we're going to have our hot takes, which is something y'all don't want to miss out on. I think we're going to go with the teams that are on 5 teams that are under the most pressure. And then our India Tadka segment featuring Amjyot Singh, our special guest. And lastly, me and Mr. Kumar are going to pick the 7 marquee games coming up this week.
Well, it's an exciting show, let me tell you, Mr. Patel. So let's get started and let's recap what's happened over the past week because let me tell you, I was so relieved that some basketball action finally started.
Yes, same here. And there were some pretty good games. Individual team performances, great player performances. The games are picking up. There's been pretty good basketball on both sides, so it's been pretty exciting to watch. And so starting with the Eastern Conference, a team that really stands out to me, it is the Philadelphia 76ers. They really kind of came out and stumbled out of the gate, losing to the Indiana Pacers without Malcolm Brogdon and Victor Oladipo, despite Joel Embiid having a huge game, 41 points and 21 rebounds. And then the next game, they barely beat the Spurs. They needed a Shake Milton late three-pointer. And then last night, they had trouble with the Wizards. So the Sixers can go either way. They can lose in the first round, or they can go all the way to the NBA Finals.
I definitely feel the surprise package for me was the Indiana Pacers. They've been absolutely fantastic in the Eastern Conference. They're 3-0, and what a game TJ Warren had against Philadelphia, where he scored almost 53 points. You never know that he had a star in him. He was great even in India when he scored a buzzer beater to tie the game in the NBA India games. But I think Milwaukee Bucks sits right at the top. But of course, I think they've been a little bit scratchy, especially losing against the Brooklyn Nets. Toronto Raptors, man, they've been very strong, but I think they'll still lock in for that second place. It's going to be very tough to, the Bucks have to lose pretty much all the games, and the Raptors need to win, pretty much all the games if they need to come out on top. But let me tell you, that middle section is something that is really worrisome, especially for teams like Boston Celtics, Miami Heat, because the Indiana Pacers can really challenge them. And those standings mean a lot when you come to the playoffs.
And I'm very glad you mentioned the Boston Celtics because they kind of, Jayson Tatum had a horrific first game going like 2 for 18. He did bounce back, but the Celtics, something just seems off with them. Their team chemistry doesn't seem like the best. They don't know when to take turns and who's going to take that big shot and who they need to be aggressive and attack. So I think the Celtics, are going to kind of stumble. And if you're the Celtics, even if you stay at the 3rd seed, you do not want to face the Philadelphia 76ers because even though they're struggling, they've had your number this year. I believe Sixers have gone 2-1 against them. So that could be a possible first-round upset. So if you're the Celtics, you need to keep winning and hope maybe the Indiana Pacers fall to the 6th seed because that's a more favorable matchup. Because I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics struggle against the Sixers because that's a huge rivalry. There's a lot of hate between those teams. And the Sixers have confidence that they're able to beat the Celtics. So I think the Celtics need to play a lot better and get in better form before the playoffs.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder why they even brought Washington Wizards into the bubble because now they have dropped to the 10th rank. So they've actually gone below another team which probably never came into the bubble, which is the Charlotte Hornets. And, so now they're 24 and 44. So it's a gamble right there. So I think the Wizards are totally out, and the Brooklyn Nets and Orlando Magic have been going at each other in terms of that 7th and 8th place. So, yeah, I mean, the East is okay, but I think, yeah, it's just going to boil down to the middle three. The top two is pretty much fixed for me.
Yeah, it is. The East is pretty top heavy. Like I wanted to quickly point out about the Wizards. They play terrible defense. It's like non-existent, but they are fun to watch on the offensive end. Brooklyn is just a hot mess right now, even though they did beat Milwaukee. They just don't have the talent. The back end of the East is not the strongest. So Milwaukee and Toronto in their first round matchup will have an easier matchup, like a cakewalk, to be able to get into form, to be able to face the better teams.
Well, that's the East recap for you. And of course, we'll be coming up with some of the more information on the marquee games in the East and West at the end of the section. But let's move on to the West, Mr. Patel, where it's getting hotter and hotter. It looks like I got to remove my jacket when we discuss the West.
Yes, the West is, West is pretty stacked this year, and they got a lot of like solid teams, What I've seen is the Denver Nuggets have creeped within a half a game of the LA Clippers. Because the Clippers had a bad loss a couple days ago to the Phoenix Suns, and the Denver Nuggets beating the Miami Heat and then beating the Spurs. If the Nuggets get that 2 seed, I think that they'll be in good form because they'll be able to avoid the Lakers until the Western Conference Finals. So I think the Nuggets are looking pretty good. They still had a lot of injuries. They don't have their full team. A team like the Oklahoma City Thunder is someone to watch out for because Chris Paul has played at an MVP level. He's really, been a great leader for that team. That team has a lot of great young pieces. They can be very dangerous. And Mr. Kumar, I would love to see an Oklahoma City Thunder Houston Rockets matchup in the first round of the playoffs. James Harden against Chris Paul, former teammates. Russell Westbrook used to play for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oh, the storylines within that series would just be insane, and that would be must-see basketball in the first round.
Of course, the opening night games, especially the Lakers and Clippers, what a fantastic game it was. And, of course, the Utah Jazz playing the Memphis. And let me tell you, there have been exciting overtime games in the West. Dallas has had 2 overtime games. They were lucky in one, but they lost the first one. So I think the games that started in the bubble, it feels like it's just the regular season starting, and there was no break of like 4 months. And let me tell you, this West is going to be, the last leg of the West is going to be very, very interesting because the 2 rank to the 6th rank, it's all a matter of a couple of games. And, all these teams still need to fight hard in terms of to get the better standings. So even the Clippers, who are a second-ranked team, they can't just laze around and rest their players. While the Lakers have already got the number 1 seed, so they can give rest to LeBron, they can give rest to Anthony Davis. So it looks like the 2nd to 6th seed, that's going to be an interesting matchup right there.
It is, and the race for the 8th seed is really heating up. Also, the Grizzlies and the Blazers in the first game in the NBA restart, they had an overtime game, which the Blazers ended up winning. And the Blazers are now only 1 game behind the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies are 0-4 so far in the bubble. Losing Jaren Jackson Jr. to a torn meniscus, he's out for the season. That's going to be a huge loss. The Spurs are kind of creeping closer, 2 games behind, as well as the Pelicans. So the Grizzlies are going to better start winning, and doing so without Jaren Jackson Jr. And the Blazers, Dame has been playing pretty good. Dame time is really coming to fruition in the NBA restart. And CJ McCollum is playing a lot better. Nurkic and Collins are playing with a lot of confidence, and they're coming together well as a team. And I think the Blazers could possibly sneak into that 8th spot and play the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round of the playoffs.
Absolutely, because I just feel very sorry for a team like Memphis. They played really hard. It's a very, very young team with the rookie Ja Morant playing, fantastic basketball. Jaren Jackson, Valanciunas. So it just feels, awful for me that Coach Taylor Jenkins is finding it tough to win in the bubble. So they have lost pretty much all of the games. So they really need to at least win 1 or 2 games if they really need to be in the play-in tournament, because the San Antonio Spurs and the Portland Trailblazers. They are right behind them, and and we have, I think, about 5 games left for these two teams in terms of the regular season. It's going to be a tough situation for that number 8 playing tournament.
It is. And, the Memphis Grizzlies, they've been in a lot of these games, the Blazers, the Spurs, but they just kind of failed to execute in the last couple minutes of the game. But that goes with a young team. And what hurts the Grizzlies is that they really lost to the teams that are chasing them. They lost to the Pelicans, Spurs, Blazers. So Grizzlies need to, really flip the switch ASAP. And, it's going to be tough, without Jaren Jackson Jr. because he's been balling in this restart. He's making a lot of tough shots, holding it down in the paint. But I think the Blazers are right now primed to make the 8th spot. As Damian Lillard said at his birthday party in the bubble, let's not waste our time here. I think they're focused and motivated. And I think the Blazers, they would pose a lot of problems to your Los Angeles Lakers, Mr. Kumar. That's not going to be an easy cakewalk first round series.
Well, I do believe that it's not going to be a cakewalk, but I still predict if the Blazers play the Lakers in the first round, it's going to be a 4.
Say that again.
Sorry, there was some technical problem right there. I think if the Blazers play the Lakers, it's going to be a 4-2 kind of situation where the Lakers come on top.
Oh, exactly. And all the games are going to be close, but I think the Lakers' talent and experience of LeBron James and Anthony Davis would prevail. I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah. So that was the recap, and of course, I thought the Houston Rockets was also doing pretty well, but they ended up losing to the Blazers. They beat the Bucks. They beat the Mavericks in overtime. What a fantastic game that was. But, well, let's see what the rest of the week is going to look like, for the West. Of course, and then it's going to boil down to the rankings. And then when you're going to decide who's going to play who in the playoffs.
Yes, and there's going to be a lot of movement, and all these teams are very close together. Right now, really only the Lakers have clinched, so everybody else has something to play for in terms of playoff seeding. Is, as you know, Mr. Kumar, playoffs is all about matchups. You got to find the right matchups and the right style that fits your team. And I think and the teams are still, remember, trying to, get their win together, get back into basketball shape. And most teams have about 4 to 5 games left in the restart before we're going to get to the playoffs. So there's not a lot of time. Games are coming pretty fast every other day. So teams are really going to have to, keep up on the fly.
Of course, you could always connect with us and give us your comments on who do you think is going to be playing in the playoffs, and who do you think have been the best teams in the bubble so far? Please connect with us on our Instagram channel or Twitter, and we would be happy to read your comments. So let's move on to the next section, Mr. Patel. I think the moment that you have been waiting for, perhaps.
Yes, so the 24-second hot take. So let me just explain. In this section, it's going to be a new section that me and Mr. Kumar are going to have a 24-second shot clock to give as many hot takes, rapid fire, as we can. And first, since we can't decide on who's going to go first, we're going to do a coin flip to see which conference each of us are going to do and who's going to start us off.
Well, Patel, do you have a coin with you?
No, I do not. I'm sorry. Oh, man. Do you have a coin?
Let me find one. I mean, I don't use cash at all now because I don't get out of the house. It's lockdown time. Okay, what do you call, Mr. Patel?
Heads.
Okay, it's heads. So what do you say? Who do you go first?
I think I will go first, and I will choose the Eastern Conference.
You choose the Eastern Conference? Okay.
Yeah. Or as you would say, the Leastern Conference.
I know, but just remind everybody, these are like the top headlines in the Eastern Conference that Mr. Patel thinks that these are the hot take from the Eastern Conference. Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
All righty. It's going to make you fall out of your chair, Mr. Kumar.
Let's go.
All right. Kyle Lowry is the most underrated player in the East. The Sixers are a dark horse in the East. Joel Embiid is the best player in the East. The Heat is the best team that no one talks about. The Celtics will lose in the first round. There are more Eastern Conference contenders than Western Conference. The NBA champion will come out of the Eastern Conference, and Jayson Tatum is overrated.
Jayson Tatum is overrated. How can you say that? He's been probably playing the best ball of his life. I know he's had two inconsistent games in the bubble, but that's not the criteria to make him overrated.
Yeah, but he had a horrible first game. He was a little bit better in the second game, but he's not playing at that same MVP All-Star level that he was playing throughout the season. And without him playing that way, I don't see the Boston Celtics, advancing past the first round, especially if they play the Philadelphia 76ers.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a tough competition. I can give you that, but I mean, you're going to a very big length in terms of claiming that Jayson Tatum is overrated.
What about the Joel Embiid is the best player in the Eastern Conference, better than Giannis? Yes, I said it. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I don't have any thoughts because I don't want to even comment on that.
Hey, Joel.
Giannis is the MVP, reigning MVP, and you're comparing Giannis to Embiid. Embiid has at least, he needs to make a big leap in terms of, carrying this whole Philadelphia 76ers team. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be a very tough situation for him. Yes, he plays good ball, but, it's just individual talent because you got to get your team to win.
Yeah, but he's there. You just see that he puts an impact on the box score. He had 41 and 21 the first game, 30 against the Spurs. He had another 30-point game against the Wizards. Without him, the Sixers would be 0-3 right now in the bubble. He's the one that's really carrying the Sixers team, and it's just him. All the responsibility is on him, and he's the one. The Sixers' playoff hopes rest on Joel Embiid's sturdy shoulders.
Well, if you say so, because I do expect him to be under a lot of pressure to perform. So it's my turn, and
all right.
I'm gonna do the hot take from the West.
All right, go for it.
Okay, now Lakers, the #1 team in the world. AD, beware of the brow. Luka Doncic, the best player to come out of Europe. Carmelo, old is gold. Rockets, Houston, we have a problem. Phoenix, the sun is rising. The Clippers, are they consistent? Lou Williams, the bubbling mentality. Spurs, they're going to make a comeback.
I love your last one. The Spurs are going to make a comeback and steal that 8th position. But in regard, Anthony Davis, Mr. Kumar, you may not like me saying this, but he's been the best player on the Lakers in the bubble so far. He's the one that led the Lakers to the first win against the LA Clippers. He didn't have as good of a game against the Raptors, but then he had a great bounce-back game in the third game, scoring another 30 points. And he's been the most dominant player on this Lakers team. What do you say to that, Mr. Kumar?
There is no doubt about it that he is one of the best talents to be in the Lakers team. But, of course, LeBron is not in the playoff mentality yet. Once he gets into that playoff mode, it's going to be a different ball game, let me tell you. Because he can switch on and switch off anytime. But yes, this has been the best partner he had in a long, long time. I think LeBron and Anthony Davis are probably one of the best duos that you'll ever see in basketball.
Yes, and I think my favorite hot take was Luka Doncic is the best player from Europe. I think he has a chance to be one of the all-time greats in the NBA. He has a chance to become better than Dirk Nowitzki if he can live up to his potential and bring a couple championships to Dallas, because this Dallas team is stacked. I think they're gaining experience. They're still young, but I think just watch out. In a couple of years, they're going to be a very dangerous team to watch and a contender in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a very young talent, and I think he can really become the best player to come out of Europe. He can probably even overtake Dirk Nowitzki because, of course, he has a long way to go for that. But I think he has the potential. He has been absolutely phenomenal for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes, and there was a lot of question whether his game will translate to the NBA. He had a sensational rookie season, followed it up with an excellent second year, and this year he's been putting up a lot of great numbers for the Mavericks. He has that lethal step back three. He can get to the basket. He's a great free throw shooter. He can get his teammates involved. He just has a great all around game, and I think that makes it really tough to stop. And he's going to only continue to get better. He's only like 21 years old, Mr. Kumar, and I think that's kind of scary what his potential could be.
Yeah, but what do you think about the Suns? Are they rising?
Well, they are 3-0, and Devin Booker's last minute shot against the Clippers to win on Paul George reminded me of the late great Kobe Bryant. And the Suns, they're going to need some help. First of all, they're going to have to keep on winning, but then they're going to need like the Spurs, the Blazers, and the Pelicans to lose, and the Grizzlies to lose. But Suns have played better in this restart than I've anticipated for sure.
I feel they've been probably the best team in the bubble so far. I think I rate them even higher than Toronto.
Wow.
Yes, Toronto is also an unbeaten team, and Phoenix Suns as well. But that last buzzer beater against the LA Clippers, man, that was a contested shot. It was not like as if he was left open. I mean, there were like three people on him, and Paul George cannot defend better than that, but I mean, the luck was on his side, and Devin Booker just nailed it. And but that was, I just thought that the Clippers were a little bit lazy on that in that game. Probably they should have probably locked them up even before. But I think Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, two young talents, they're going to be. I think they're coming in. I mean, getting a momentum pretty too late into the season. But I think they're going to be a very, very good team next year.
Oh, they are. They're going to be, one of the teams to watch out for breakout-wise. But Mr. Kumar, you need to pump the brakes, saying the Phoenix Suns are playing better than the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors are the second team in the Eastern Conference, and the Suns are not even in the playoffs as we speak. But don't get me wrong, the Suns have had a great NBA restart, playing better than I thought, and they're going to give a lot of teams trouble this year and going forward.
Well, I do agree with you. I mean, Toronto has been an overall good team throughout the season. What I'm trying to say is the Phoenix Suns has been the best team in the past week, just in the bubble. They performed really well, and, beating a team like Clippers is not that easy. I mean, for anybody who's sitting on the sidelines would have said the Clippers are going to get an easy game, an easy win against the Phoenix Suns. So all I'm saying is the Phoenix Suns is a team to look out for. Probably not this season, but next season, especially with Monty Williams as their coach, Devin Booker, becoming a much improved player, DeAndre Ayton. So and Kelly Oubre is not playing because he's injured. So with Kelly Oubre coming back, it's going to be a strong team.
No, they are a strong team, and you don't doubt the Suns on the offensive end. But I think in order for them to make the playoffs, especially next year, they're going to have to play a lot more better defense and be more disciplined on the defensive end. But Devin Booker can score, 70 any game. He can go off. He is one of the most underrated players in the NBA, partly because he does play in a small market in Phoenix. But Booker and DeAndre Ayton have become a great core. They work well together. I think they play off well together. And I think the Suns are definitely a team to watch out for and one of the more up-and-coming teams in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. We have one more week of regular season games, and then, of course, it's going to be the playoffs. So it's exciting basketball for one more week, and let's hope we get some really overtime games just like week one. But let's move on to our next section. I think that's the main section that we are looking out for is the top 5 teams that are under pressure in this this season in order to win a championship. So of course, Mr. Patel here and Mr. Kumar, myself, we have ranked our 5 teams going from number 5 to number 1, and let's see who we got. In teams under pressure. Under pressure. I feel like I want to hear that Queen song, Under Pressure.
Yeah. So I think we're going to start out. I guess I'll start out first, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, I mean, So let's go. Who are your top 5 teams Mr. Patel, I think we'll wait for the producers to put on the graphics on the screen, I guess, right?
Yes.
Ooh, there's an awkward silence right there. But I mean, it's going to be a tough decision for us because, of course, all the teams are under pressure. There are stars who are under pressure, but of course, we pick the top 5 teams who are under most pressure, or it's like a pressure cooker situation because, of course, I think most of our teams are going to be from the West.
Yeah, most of our teams are going to be the same, but it's going to be a different order because we feel like different players and teams under more pressure under circumstances to win this year than maybe some others. So let me get started. So my 5th team that's going to be under pressure is going to be the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers have never won a championship in their franchise history, never made it past the second round. Number 4, LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron is in age 17, year 35. Number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers. Many predicted that was going to win the championship at the beginning of the year. Number 2, Milwaukee Bucks. Can Giannis get his first championship at the age of 25? And lastly, number 1, the Houston Rockets. Can James Harden finally get that much eluded NBA championship?
Well, it looks like I have the same teams in a different order, but I think I would like to get more views from you on why you chose the Houston Rockets. But before that, let me pick my top 5 teams which are under pressure to win a championship this year. Because, as I told you, the same teams, different order, and you'll have your reasons in order to put the Houston Rockets number 1. I'm really surprised that you have the Los Angeles teams at the bottom. So let's go. My top 5 teams, I think at number 5, I have the Philadelphia 76ers, Embiid and Simmons, yes, but not a great team. Los Angeles Clippers, the homecoming for 2 people. Then the Houston Rockets, the best backcourt ever, but do they have the firepower? Milwaukee Bucks. They lost in the semifinals last year, so they have a big shoes to fill. And top team to be under most pressure is the Los Angeles Lakers. And you know the reason why, Mr. Patel.
Yeah, and I buy it. You could put any. I feel like the teams that are under the most pressure are probably the 2 LA teams and the Milwaukee Bucks and the Houston Rockets. And for the LA teams, it's just mainly LeBron James trying to win a championship at age 35. He's only got a couple more years left. For the Clippers, can Paul George and Kawhi Leonard finally bring a championship to LA? Can the 2 coexist? And Kawhi is trying to become the first player in NBA history to win 3 championships with 3 different teams.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little bit surprised that you put both the Los Angeles teams on your list right at the bottom. Of course, there was too much of hype involved in terms of Leonard probably trying to sign with the Lakers. And then, of course, he did a coup and went on to the Clippers. And he did a bigger coup and got Paul George traded from the Oklahoma Thunder. Nobody expected that, at the beginning of the season.
Yes, and everybody thought, pencil it in, Kawhi Leonard is going to the Lakers, but he was like, nope, I'm going to go to the second team in LA, the Clippers, and bring Paul George, who nobody expected. But, the Clippers and the Lakers have been playing well as expected. The Rockets, people were kind of bullish with them, coming into the season and knowing how they're going to play with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Can the 2 play together? How can Westbrook play off the ball? But they played pretty well together. The Rockets are one of the top teams in the Western Conference, and I think, they are one of the title favorites. But the real question is, Mr. Kumar, can the Rockets style of play of jacking up a lot of threes, isolation ball, the Harden has the ball at the top of the key, putting the air out of the ball, dribble, and taking a lot of threes, and they don't have a lot of ball movement or play a lot of defense. The real question is, can that style of play win you an NBA championship?
Oh, well, they've been semi-successful in terms of since the time they traded Clint Capella, who was probably the only center they had in their team. And now P.J. Tucker or Daniel House plays center, and I mean the tallest player in your team is 6 feet 7 inches. So it's going to be a tough proposition come playoff. But I mean, I don't know if the Houston Rockets are really under that much pressure because I think they need another a third person, a third wheel. Eric Gordon has, of course, been very consistent last season, but he's been injured. This season, he got injured again during the first game, and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, I mean, they're expected to be the team to upset one of the LA teams, of course. So I don't know. I mean, playing small ball in like 48 minutes, is it really going to help them?
Yeah, and you could see, when they play against the Lakers and the Clippers, PJ Tucker ends up having to guard either Montrezl Harrell or Anthony Davis, and he gets completely dominated inside. But I think the Rockets were able to compensate for that by just shooting a lot of threes. They shoot the most 3-pointers in the NBA, and they make the most. And, Mike D'Antoni is also, he didn't get in his last year of his contract, and he did not get an extension. So he's kind of under a microscope to be able to win a championship in the analytics era that he's, been a part of. But James Harden really needs a championship, be able to cement his legacy and show that he is one of the best offensive players, not only right now in the NBA, but in the NBA history. And he needs a championship to, be able to validate that because he does take a lot of, jump shots, a lot of 3-pointers. He doesn't really pass the ball that much. But Russell Westbrook has played a lot better than most people expected, averaging about 27 points a game. And Harden and Westbrook have known one another, since a young age. They both grew up in Southern California. I think they both vibe off well one another. They have great chemistry, and I think they both have an end goal in mind of winning a championship and doing whatever it takes. So I think there's a lot of pressure, especially for Westbrook, because Westbrook has gone all these crazy triple doubles, MVPs. But he's fallen short in the playoffs. I don't think he's made it past the first round in the last 3 to 4 years. So both need to really win and advance deep in the playoffs to be able to cement their legacies as one of the best players, in the NBA.
Well, we did ask the audience in terms of what they think. And, of course, most people thought the Bucks are under most pressure in terms, and then, second is the Lakers. And, it's evident that, the Bucks are under a lot of pressure because Giannis, he just fell short last season because he came up against a person called Kawhi Leonard, who just, locked him up in the Eastern Conference semifinals. They won the first 2 games, and they were cruising. Everybody had written off the Toronto Raptors after the first 2 games in the conference semifinals.
Yeah, they were up. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Kumar. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, they were up 2-0. They ended up losing 4 straight games. And there was a lot of people questioning Giannis. Is he really that good? Can he win in the playoffs? And this year, I think that's why he's under the most pressure. And also, he's going to be a free agent in a year. So the Bucks really need to show Giannis that he can win in a small market so that he can stay in Milwaukee. So I think the Bucks are one of the teams under the most pressure because Giannis is still young enough in his prime. And the question is, can he win a championship?
Well, let's hope so because it's going to be a very precarious situation for the Bucks because Giannis is going to be a free agent after the season. So it really depends how they perform in the postseason. He could really, skip town to join another team or something like that, but we never know. But I think the Lakers are under most pressure because I think it's a very simple answer, Mr. Patel, because the most talked about person in the entire basketball planet is LeBron James. So of course, the Lakers haven't made the playoffs in the last 10 years. They're the number 1 seed after 10 years. They haven't made the playoffs in a very long time. Of course, it's going to be a lot of pressure now that they are the number 1 team. They have achieved one of the milestones in terms of winning a title. But, they moved heaven and earth to get somebody like an Anthony Davis. They shipped off young talents like Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and a lot of picks, and they had a big gamble to assemble this team. They have a new coaching staff in Frank Vogel. Nobody thought that Frank Vogel, Jason Kidd, Lionel Hollins, everybody would work together, but the coaching staff has been pretty good. And the front office, I mean, that was the mess last year. Magic Johnson resigned. Everybody was, speculating that Rob Pelinka had a hand in it, and the Lakers organization, probably one of the best franchisees to come out of the NBA, is in shambles. But look at where they are. So that's why I feel that the Lakers are under the most pressure to win a title. And let me tell you, if LeBron James wins a title, he is going to be declared the GOAT, the GOAT.
Oh, I agree with you on that because he would have been able to lead 3 different teams to 3 championships. The Cavs, the Heat, and now the Lakers. And, Lakers are one of the most storied franchises in NBA history. And you're right, they were struggling. And LeBron James kind of came in and brought stability to this Lakers team. And they ended up, getting Anthony Davis. And I think for the Lakers, they're very primed. This is the best team that they've had in a while. And the LA fans, Mr. Kumar, they don't accept anything less than the championship. So they've been kind of, restless and be like, they've been really irrelevant the last decade. So I think, they're also getting pressure from the fan base and the media to be able to perform because Anthony Davis and LeBron James are both regarded as top 5 players in the NBA currently.
Now, let me tell you, the Lakers are going to prove your Clippers that the town belongs to them and not the Clippers. The Clippers are always going to be, playing under the Lakers. I know they have, being a top team this year, but it's going to be a Laker town and not a Clipper town, let me tell you.
But if the Clippers win, Kawhi crowning right now, Kawhi Leonard will be the new king of LA and be the best player in the NBA. And I think, the town might start shifting to the Clippers because the Clippers have technically would have won the championship more recently than the Los Angeles Lakers. What do you think about that, Vinod?
Pardon me, can you repeat that, please?
I think Kawhi Leonard is going to be the new king of LA, and the Clippers are going to start getting more popular in LA if they win a championship before the Lakers because they've been really irrelevant the last decade.
You are just, amusing yourself, you're amusing me, and you're amusing the audience. The Leonard is not going to become the king. He's got miles to go before he can become a king. Yes, I give you that he may become one of the best players in the NBA. He may overtake LeBron as one of the best players, but LeBron has been doing that for 17 years. He's age 35, and look at him where he is. And he's made this team work. He's been a leader. He's made sure that everybody gets engaged. As I told you last episode, he's been averaging almost 11 assists per game, and that's the highest. So I think
in basketball, yeah,
he's playing one of the best basketballs that you can ever see from a man who's played for 17 years.
No, yeah, he's been incredible, and without him, I don't think the Lakers, would be as successful, this year because he's really, like you said, taken on that leadership role. There's been less drama. I think he's really bought into the team, and I think the team believes in one another, and I think they're primed for a championship run. But they're going to fall short to the Los Angeles Clippers and the new king of LA, Kawhi Leonard.
You can say as much as you want, Mr. Patel. It's not going to happen. But anyway, we'll leave it at that because we'll move on to our next segment because, of course, Houston Rockets, they're under a lot of pressure. The Lakers under a lot of pressure. I think all the teams are under a lot of pressure because this is a bubble, and one of these teams is hoping to burst that bubble and come out of it as champions. So let's move on to our next segment, and that is the Indian Tadka. Let's put some spices.
We have a spicy Indian Tadka section for you today. Coming up, we have an interview with an Indian basketball player, Amjyot Singh. But first, Mr. Kumar, let's talk about the Indian players that have played in the G League.
Well, I mean, that's what we wanted to highlight in this section, in this spicy Indian Tadka segment, is we wanted to highlight the players who have either played in the NBA G League or who just made it but could not play in the G League, especially with Prince Paul, who has been selected to play the NBA G League select team. So let's get on with our section. I think the first player to play in the G League is Satnam Singh. And of course, we had the next player to play in the G League was Amjyot Singh Gill, who's going to come back to play. Who's played for the OKC Blue and the Wisconsin Herd.
All right, I'm back, Mr. Kumar. I apologize, everyone, for the technical difficulties. So, what were you saying?
Well, I think you got cut out because you didn't want to hear this, but I'm joking, but it's okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties, viewers, but of course, during the pandemic, we're trying to do our best in terms of coming to you live from our homes. And of course, sometimes you have those wacky internet connections. So welcome back, Mr. Patel. As we were discussing,
I'm glad I'm back.
Well, I was just really missing you there for some time, but nevertheless, we were talking about the players who probably went on to play in the G League. Now that Prince Paul, got selected to got a contract to play in the NBA G League select team. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about the NBA G League select team, and then we come back to the players who probably shined in the G League from India?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the G League Select team was created this year, and it's a full kind of pathway developmental program for 18-year-old kids that do not want to go to college, but instead have their mindset on a pro career. And this program allows these kids, they're going to be training in California with pro coaches and develop kind of that professional mindset. They're not only going to be able to develop their skills on the court, but they'll be able to develop in the weight room, physically, mentally, emotionally, and kind of learn how it's like to be a pro, how to live like a pro and how to be successful. So this is definitely a great program that Principal is going to be going into. It's very selective, very competitive. Right now, there's 5 other players besides Principal. Four of them are American players, and they're led by Jalen Green, who was the #1 high school player in this year's class, and he's the headliner of this program because he's projected #1 overall pick, and he's most likely going to be the next LeBron James. But there's also another player that's an international player, kind of like Principal. His name is Kai Soto, and he's trying to be the first Philippines player to play in the NBA. And he's someone that's probably going to be compared to Principal because, first of all, they play the same position. They kind of have the same skill set and the same build, and they're both international players trying to navigate and try to make a professional roster.
Wow, that's going to be a huge opportunity for these young men, and I do hope we see Prince Paul playing a lot of minutes. But I mean, we really wanted to discuss in terms of whether playing in the G League and going on, then of course graduating to the NBA, is it all just hype, or is it really worth the discussion, especially for players coming out of India? So I mean, the first player to, of course, play in the G League was Satnam Singh. He got drafted by the Dallas Mavericks. He didn't end up playing in the NBA, but he ended up playing for their G League affiliate. He did pretty okay. Played some minutes. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, Satnam did get drafted by the Dallas Mavericks and played on the G League team, as you said. He played pretty decent. He was just a big body. He made an impact, on rebounding, finishing down low, playing defense. So he did make an impact. And I think that he definitely does have some more basketball ahead of him. But he did play pretty good for the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay, so the second player, of course, was Amjyot Singh Gill, who we interviewed yesterday, and we're going to show his interview pretty soon. But the other, I mean, he played for the OKC Blues and then the Wisconsin Herd. But he had a different route going on to the G League because he had a selection, he had a tryout, and I actually felt he did pretty well playing for both those teams. Unfortunately, he couldn't continue playing in the G League, but we do hope to see him back again in the G League or some professional league soon, because and we're going to hear him say that as well.
Yes, and he did make a pretty good impact on both teams with OKC and the Wisconsin Herd. He was an energy guy. He played great defense. He hustled. He was like a stretch four. He really tried to improve his shooting, and he made an impact on both ends of the floor. And it was unfortunate, with this pandemic now, and the G League season, being canceled. But best wishes, to Amjyot, and I'm sure, or actually, I'm very confident that he is going to end up either back in the G League or playing professional abroad.
And of course, now that we have Chris Paul, he's also probably going to get a huge opportunity playing for the NBA G League Select team. We wish him all the very best, but I mean, there's going to be a huge transition in terms of playing in the NBA Academy in India. He went on to the NBA Global Academy in Australia, and now with the G League. So we're going to see him in action pretty soon. And the fourth person, who I thought was a little bit unlucky was Palpreet Singh. He did, get selected for the Long Island Nets through a tryout that was held in India. He was selected, but ultimately he couldn't get onto the main team, so he was cut and he had to return back to India.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, he did get cut, but he does have a bright basketball future, and best of luck to him. I'm sure that he's going to be successful wherever his next endeavor lies.
Yes, and we also need to discuss a person of Indian origin, and that is Sim Buller, probably one of the most successful, Indian origin player in the G League, as well as he did get to play some minutes for the Sacramento Kings in the NBA, but later on he shifted to the Chinese Basketball League, and now I think he's playing in the Taiwanese professional league.
Yes, and Sim Buller was the first player of Indian descent to appear in an NBA game and also score in an NBA game. And he was mainly with the Sacramento Kings G League roster. And looking at his stats, he played pretty well. He averaged about 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 blocks a game. So I think he made a pretty big impact, especially on the defensive end. And I think best of luck to him also, and in the Chinese basketball league.
Well, I mean, that makes the list of Indian players and Indian origin players in the G League. But I think we'll move on to our most highlighted section, and that is our interview with Amjyot Singh Gill. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here live because of his police duties with the Punjab Police. So I think we'll play a video for you, which is what we recorded yesterday, and let us hear what are his thoughts on playing in the G League. I can start, yeah. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Patel and Kumar show, to the Indian Tadka section. We have a very, very important guest here who has wide variety of experience playing in professional leagues across the country, especially in the G League, NBA G League. We have Amjyot Gill from India, of course. He played for the Indian national team. He's played for in the G League for the OKC and Wisconsin team. So welcome, Amjyot. Thank you very much for being here today. And I can tell you how excited I am to see you in person.
Thank you so much for having me, sir. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
No problem.
Can't tell you how excited me and Vinod are to have you on.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said I can't tell you how excited me and Vinod are to have you on the show.
So I'm very excited too. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So Shivam, please, you can do the honors of asking me the questions.
So yes, unlike Satnam, he got drafted in the NBA and went to the G League, but you yourself went directly to the G League. So kind of tell us how that process was like and how you navigated it.
So I was playing in the Japan League, sir. So like we were playing 3-on-3. So one of my manager told me that, Himanshu told me that like you can try out for the G League. My and Amritpal name was in the G League draft. So like we were eligible to take part in the draft. So like I went to US for like on 28th of September. So 29th was the draft. So only one day before I reached there. The first year I didn't get selected because I didn't know what was going on and stuff. So the next year I went there 2 months before and started working out with different teams. And OKC selected me. And this is how, it all went through.
Well, that is great news because, in India, we always wanted to have somebody who could, go on to play professionally in different countries. And, we are very fortunate as Indians to see that Amjyot, you performed really well. We would watch your videos and stuff like that, to, of course, inspire all the basketball players in India. So, but how do you rate, playing in the G League and playing for the Indian national team in terms of course, the skill level, the fitness level, and how much hard work you had to put in while playing in the G League?
It was complete different things, sir, because the Asian basket, like the FIBA and NBA is completely different. There are different rules and stuff. So the first thing was to learn these things, like the 3-second defensive 3-second rules. And the court was bigger, the time was more, the shot clock was, much more thing than the FIBA thing. So these were the small things which I had to learn. And then, I have to fit in the role because I was not the top player of the team. So I was a role player. So I had to take that opportunity and be the best in it. Whereas in the Indian team, I was the all-rounder. I had to do everything. I had to bring the ball. I was the feeder, point guard, and the shooter also, and rebounder, post player. Everything I had to do everything. Whereas in the G League, I only had specific things, and they used to use me as a 4 number as a shooter. So so it was a completely different, drastic change in my game, which I have to accept. And like there were a lot of things which I had to learn, like be quick from the feet, because because if I was playing for the Indian team, I was the all-rounder, so I could do whatever. I could be sloppy at times and take down my pace and then go again. So but in the G, I had to be at 100 level every time. Every time I step in the court, I would be at 100. So it was like very difficult for me to, come up with these things.
So Amjyot, you played with one season, with OKC, and the next you went with the Wisconsin Herd. So kind of tell me how it was like, playing with both of those teams, and like any differences that you saw, playing with those with the Wisconsin and OKC.
So the first year I played with the OKC, they had a different system, and the Wisconsin had different system. So it was a drastic change in my game because, like, I didn't know that two different teams have different ideologies and different structure. Everything was different in their game and structure, or whatever you can say, like way they approach the game. OKC was more into a fast team. They want to push in the fast break and stuff. I had the role, like I had to go to the corners, like because they used to call me the corner specialist. So, the only thing I had to do, run wherever I'm in the court, run to the corners, and they would drive and give me the pass, and I'd shoot. And like in Wisconsin, I was the center guy. I had to make all the moves work. So, this was the first thing I had to manage. And there were a lot of other things, both the people were professionals, and they had like OKC had a very good system. Like they had a good ground facility. Like their NBA team facility was given to the G League team, and they had made a new facility for them. Whereas the Wisconsin was their own facility. They didn't have that much good facility as the OKC Blues.
Well, that was great news because you played, well for both teams. So that was very exciting to see that they're on the court balling. So that was awesome.
Thank you, sir.
So, I mean, as far as Indian viewers are concerned, they're all like, oh, you played for OKC's G League team. So did you ever get a chance to like shake hands with Russell Westbrook or, some of the stars? Of course, you must have watched a lot of the NBA games also, the OKC Thunder games. So tell me about that experience, in terms of meeting with the NBA stars.
We used to do like the Thunder Care thing. So you used to go to some places, like the NBA team used to also come, and like all the great players used to come, and our G League team used to also go. So we used to catch up with them, and in the summer time we used to practice in their facility only, the NBA practice facility. So like I used to see them, but we didn't play with each other, but I used to see them a lot. So I used to watch their game when they used to be practicing. I used to be sit outside, and because it was a great experience for me. So I have met everyone from OKC team. Whereas in the Wisconsin, because Milwaukee team was away from Wisconsin, it was like 35 kilometers away from Milwaukee, so I couldn't meet anyone from Milwaukee.
So, what is the next step for your pro career? Do you see yourself, going back to the G League or maybe playing somewhere else abroad?
I was planning to go somewhere else so that like I can craft the game which I've learned from the G League, and once I like develop as a player, then go back again. So that like I should get confidence, like like I want to be a key player now in some other leagues. Like if I go to Japan or Australia, I want to be their first 5 players, and then I had to take care of that role, and then go back in the G League with more confidence and more exposure and experience.
Excellent.
Good luck with that, Amjyot, because even all the Indian fans are looking forward, in terms of you playing in some professional league, because for us, that's the aspiration, right? Because all Indian basketball players want to really, go to that level. So now that, you have heard that Prince Paul has got a contract with the NBA G League select team. So what would be your advice for a young man like him?
I think, he should stay with the course. Like he's doing great. Obviously with the NBA Global and everything, it will be he'll get a drastic change, and he should, not get demotivated, like, and he should always get motivated with the things which, they'll tell him that these are these things you have to work on and stuff. He should take it in a positive way and, step forward in the next time he plays.
So, Amjyot, the entire India is wanting to know, when will India get its first legitimate superstar? Like, do you have any thoughts about that question?
Yeah, I would have played in the NBA India games last year, but my visa got cancelled. Otherwise, I was going for the summer league last year from the Sacramento Kings, but my visa got cancelled, and I got to know the last moment. The summer league started in like at I think 2 days after when I was going to the airport. So I was in Philippines. So I applied for the ticket. They said your visa is expired. So yeah, cancelled. Sorry, because I stayed for a longer period of time than the 6 months in US on a tourist visa, because OKC forgot to change my visa to the work permit thing, and it was, yeah. So my visa was P1. They forgot to change it to something. I think other visa is B1 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's very unfortunate because that would have been just amazing to see you in a Sacramento Kings uniform playing in India for the first time ever, the NBA India Games. I think, there would have been a stampede outside the stadium just to watch Amjyot Gill, because,
And I think
I mean, that would have been amazing.
if if he wants to excel in his game, because he's only 20 years old, and sky is the limit for him, because I was like 25 when I went there. So like he's on the verge of improving, and he has a great chance of going to the NBA.
Great stuff. And so, I mean, I know I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, but there's been a lot of news surrounding you, especially with the BFI and, a lot of other stuff. Where do you see yourself in terms of coming back into the Indian team?
I love to play for the Indian team whenever I get the opportunity. It's on the, like, I can't help with the internal things in the BFI, but like whenever I get the chance and to play with the Indian team, that was my utmost priority from the day one. I have never seen my religion in front of the Indian team, so I can't say, like, I can give much more examples than like the things I have done to play for the Indian team.
Well, all the best, Jod, because as I said, we want to see you in Indian colors. We want to see you in a professional team uniform, because I personally feel you're one of the, one of the greatest talents that has come out of India. And I surely, wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Shivam, if you have any other additional questions, please go ahead.
No, not really. I just wanted to thank you again, Amjyot. We're looking forward to seeing your path ahead, and wish you all the best. We're definitely going to be keeping track, and congratulations again, and we can't wait to see you going forward.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure to talk to you both. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that was Amjyot Gill, and we were fortunate to have him with us yesterday. So good luck to Prince Paul, and we just hope there are many more G League players from India, and ultimately NBA players from India. So we did run a poll with the audience to think if you're ever going to get how long it's going to take for Indian to be a superstar in the NBA. And, so we had the options of like within 2 years or 5 to 10 years or never, or it's going to be less than 10 years. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people voted like it's going to be never. Yeah, I mean, I do feel that they're probably right, but I would like to give props to a lot of people who have said, 70% of the people said that between 2 and 10 years, India is going to have a superstar in the NBA. So, Mr. Patel, what do you think about that?
Yes, and before I answer that question, I would like to thank Amjyot. And being born in the U.S. and raised in the U.S., it was really cool and exciting to be able to talk to a big-time Indian basketball player. And I really appreciate his insights and perspective. But for me, I think 2 to 10 years is very realistic. Prince Paul has a great chance to not only make it in the NBA, but to be an impactful player. And that even if he does not, I feel like he would have laid the foundation, for somebody else to come along to be really able to take that mantle and take Indian basketball to that next level and really make it in the NBA and be a superstar and an all-star.
Yeah, so let's hope we find some new talent today who's probably 7 or 8 years old, so that in 10 years we get a superstar in the NBA.
Yes, there's a lot of young talent in India. The basketball is becoming, very popular and very, well played. And I think, just keep working hard, keep grinding. And I think there's definitely a lot of talent out there that's going to come up and really be successful.
Well, let's hope for the best, but I think due to paucity of time, let's move on to our next section. Let's do the Patel and Kumar pick'em because we need to get going, and we're gonna highlight some of the marquee games that are going to be played over this coming week. We thought like these 7 games would probably be, the most popular games. There is Clippers versus Dallas, which is going to be played tonight. The Lakers versus Houston. So, let's go on one by one. Lakers versus Dallas. Who do you think is going to win the game?
So Lakers versus Dallas versus the Clippers. I feel like the Clippers are going to win this game. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are going to bounce back and be too much for the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, I picked the Clippers too because they're under a lot of pressure and they are in a must-win situation now. What about the Lakers and Houston, which is again going to be played tonight?
Yeah, I got the Houston Rockets. James Harden is going to have another huge game.
I'm going to pick the Houston. The only reason being is that Lakers is the #1 team, so they can give rest to their stars. What about Boston versus Toronto, which is going to be played on Friday, August 7th?
I got to stick with my pick and go with the Toronto Raptors. They played some of the best basketball in the bubble so far, and I think that will continue.
I think they had a great game against Brooklyn, so I'm going to pick up the Boston in this game. And what about Milwaukee versus Dallas?
I'm going to go with the young stud Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. I think they're going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and Milwaukee Bucks are going to rest, so I don't think they're going to take the game very seriously.
Same here for me. I'm going to pick the Dallas team as well. What about Memphis versus Toronto?
Coach Jenkins is going to will his Memphis Grizzlies to their first victory, and they are going to defeat the Toronto Raptors. So for our next game, the Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons in the Philadelphia 76ers against Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers. My pick is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. I think they are going to bounce back. Ben Simmons has been injured, but Joel Embiid is going to continue to dominate and lead the Sixers to victory. Who do you pick, Mr. Kumar?
I think it's going to be the Portland. They have been pretty lethal, especially one of the best backcourts in the NBA. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And of course, Nurkic is playing, different level basketball.
Yeah, and our last game, Pascal Siakam and the Toronto Raptors against Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks. For me, I got the Milwaukee Bucks. I think Giannis is going to play, but even if he doesn't, the supporting cast is going to be enough to lead the Bucks to victory. Who do you got, Mr. Kumar?
I think I got the Toronto there because the Milwaukee is going to rest their players.
All right. So that is our pick-em for the top 7 marquee games. I hope you all enjoy these games and the many, many more games that are also available.
Of course, and we're going to come back to you next week with the recap of these games as we picked them. And let's see who's right on the money, Mr. Patel. And of course, we ran a poll for the audience as well. So between Lakers and Rockets, 83% picked the Lakers to win the game.
Yep, not surprised about that at all. LeBron James is one of the most popular players in the world, and the Lakers are one of the best teams. So that's not a shocker to me.
Clippers and Mavs, the audience picked the Clippers to win. 70% say Clippers.
Yep, I agree. Definitely, I agree with the audience. Our next game is going to be. Sorry, just 1 minute. The Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors, and it seems like the audience, 59% say the Toronto Raptors will get the W against the Boston Celtics.
Let me tell you, I think you influenced that poll, and that's the reason they picked the Toronto Raptors.
Whatever I can do to help Toronto, man. They don't get enough love, Mr. Kumar. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors, the Milwaukee Bucks are projected to win by the audience at 71%.
Why you couldn't influence this poll? So it's just, I think so. Yeah, 71% say Bucks, but I picked the Raptors only because the Bucks are going to rest their players.
Yep, same here.
Well, that's about it with the pick'em, and we're gonna come back to you next week to see who wins these games in the recap section. But we're gonna leave you guys on a lighter note, and of course, we're gonna discuss some memes coming out of India and the U.S. And of course, this is a meme from India from the Instagram handle Should Basketball Memes, and I'm under a lot of pressure because I don't know whether I need to be awake or actually wake up early in the morning to watch these games, because I have to pretty much do a different cycle now, because these NBA games, they start at 12 midnight and go on till 8 in the morning.
No, I know it must have been tough, because here in the U.S., luckily, all the games are afternoon, evening at normal times. But, you're a hardcore basketball fan, and I know you've been watching and tuning into all these games. And even if you do miss a game, I'm sure, you got the NBA League Pass already that you just ended up just catching up.
Yeah, so what about your selection from the U.S.?
So my selection is TJ Warren, who ended up scoring 53 points against the Philadelphia 76ers. And on the left is TJ Warren against the 29 other teams in the NBA. And on the right is TJ Warren, half LeBron, half MJ, against the Philadelphia 76ers, going into that killer beast mode and scoring 53 points.
I think this meme is so wrong, because after just one 50-point game, they're starting to compare him to Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I mean, that's insane.
Well, they're not saying he is, but his performance compares. He channeled his inner LeBron and MJ. I think that's what they were trying to say.
But we would also like to give a shout out to our people who are chatting with us live. Sukumurti says, Harden, fear the beard. And yes, we got to fear the beard. But and also thanks to Soham Gupta, the Bucks are, especially with the Raptors, on a roll right now. Well, it's going to be the Bucks and Raptors in number 1 and 2. Thank you for those comments. Please keep them coming, and we want you to post your comments and your views. Also connect with us on our Instagram handle, Twitter handle, @Patel and Kumar, and subscribe to our YouTube channel on Ekalavyas to watch this show live every Thursday, 7 p.m.
Yes, and I would like to thank everybody for tuning in, and the audience for their questions and comments. I enjoyed our conversation as always, Mr. Kumar. I'd also like to thank our technical team of Tushar, Gopal, and Animesh. And we'll see you every Thursday, 7 p.m. for the best basketball coverage for the NBA restart. And everyone, don't forget, the Patel and Kumar is also a podcast, and you can find that on the major platforms of Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Well, I didn't know that I made a debut on a podcast, Mr. Patel. But once again, everybody, thank you very much for being with us here tonight and in the morning in the U.S. But be sure to catch all the NBA games, all action. But you can come back to us for the best news available. This is Vinod and Mr. Kumar and Mr. Patel signing off from the Patel and Kumar NBA Talk Show on YouTube.
Yep, I'll see you all next week.